Happening now, Governor Asa Hutchinson is in Blytheville. He's making yet another stop on his COVID Community Conversations Tour. That comes as COVID-19 continues to spread rapidly across Arkansas. Today's stop in Northeast Arkansas comes after one in Batesville last night.
If we do not increase the vaccination rate, what kind of school year are we going to have?
The governor drew a crowd there last night where he highlighted the sharp increase in hospitalizations over the past month or so. He is trying especially hard to reach people in rural areas where vaccination rates are typically lower, and he's concerned about the spread of the Delta variant.
It is more contagious, it is more easily transmissible, and it can lead to hospitalization more quickly.
And our hospitalizations have risen to 565 statewide. Arkansas leads the country in new cases per capita over the past 2 weeks. That's according to figures from Johns Hopkins University. Now, Governor Hutchinson and state health officials want to remind people that the vaccine protects people from all variants, including Delta. He'll make another stop for his community conversations in Forest City tonight at 6 o'clock. The FDA has issued a new warning about one of the coronavirus vaccines. Meanwhile, new COVID cases are on the rise as the Delta variant continues its efficient spread across the country. Natalie Brand has the latest.
As the U.S. pushes to increase vaccination rates, a new warning from the FDA that the Johnson & Johnson vaccine may be linked to a very rare neurological disorder known as Guillain-Barré syndrome.
People with viral and bacterial infections can get an autoimmune reaction against the nerves in their body. And it happens occasionally with vaccines. It happens with flu vaccine, shingle vaccine, to very, very rare events.
The FDA says it has seen 100 preliminary reports of Guillain-Barré out of nearly 13 million people who received the one-dose J&J shot. 95 of those cases required hospitalization. One person died. Johnson & Johnson says the chance of having this occur is very low, and we strongly support raising awareness of the signs and symptoms of rare events.
We have the treatments for it. The key is to identify it early. And with this warning, we will do that.
The Pfizer and Moderna vaccines have not been found to have a similar risk for that complication, and doctors are still urging unvaccinated Americans to get their shots to protect against the fast-spreading Delta variant.
It is spreading more efficiently, that it is spreading in pockets that are unvaccinated, and it's causing a lot of disease and a lot of stress.
The largest increase is happening in some southern and western states.
Missouri, Arkansas, Nevada, Utah, Florida have seen more activity than other parts of the country.
CDC Deputy Director Jay Butler says more than 99% of all new cases are in people who are completely unvaccinated. Natalie Brandt, CBS News, Washington.
Something to keep in mind there. Health officials say that all evidence shows the COVID vaccine is effective even against the Delta variant. Continuing coverage on a story we first brought you last night, Arkansas State Police are investigating a deadly shooting that happened Monday afternoon right outside the emergency room at UAMS. Investigators say 59-year-old Bobby Hollingshead of Sheridan drove a truck up to the entrance and got out with a gun, telling police to stay back. When he raised the gun, a UAMS police officer shot and killed him. Hospital staff told police they had received reports that Hollingshead may have had intentions to hurt himself or others at the hospital. After its investigation, state police will turn over the findings to the Pulaski County prosecutor. Meanwhile, a special prosecutor has been named in 17-year-old Hunter Britton's case. Western Arkansas prosecutor Jeff Phillips will now handle this case. Britton was shot and killed by Lonoke County Deputy Michael Davis. Davis has since been fired by the sheriff for not activating his body camera during the incident. A surprising new name has entered into the Arkansas political arena. Former NFL player, Razorback and Army veteran Jake Beckett, announces his run for U.S. Senate. Beckett went from academic All-American in Fayetteville to Super Bowl champ with the Patriots before joining the Army. Now he's making a run at Capitol Hill, challenging fellow Republican John Bozeman in the primary.
I just think it's time for a change. He's been in Washington for over 20 years now. He's working on his third decade in the swamp. And look, I respect Senator Bozeman's many years of service. I just think it's time for someone new.
Bozeman's campaign said he looks forward to sharing his strong conservative record and continuing to serve Beckett is the fourth primary challenger to announce they're challenging Boozman. President Biden is expressing support for demonstrators in Cuba after thousands of people took to the streets in one of the country's biggest protests in decades. They're angry over the worsening economic crisis on the island, and this comes as the Biden administration reviews its policy toward the communist nation, including whether to ease or maintain economic sanctions. Manuel Bajorquez is in Miami.
We call on the government of Cuba to refrain from violence. Their attempts to silence the voice of the people of Cuba.
President Biden on Monday said the U.S. stood with Cuban protesters.
I don't think we've seen anything like this protest in a long, long time.
The comments came a day after thousands of Cubans poured into the streets, protesting against the communist government, triggered by food shortages, rising prices, and the government's response to rising COVID infections. Thousands in Miami have joined in solidarity. Havana-born Damir Perez came to Florida a decade ago and says he's optimistic the protests will fuel change.
We've been fighting this fight for a long time now. We have never seen it in 62 years of dictatorship in Cuba.
But in Havana, it was mostly quiet again by Monday. Police were seen patrolling the streets. Cuban authorities appear to have blocked access to social media sites like Facebook, WhatsApp, and Instagram. Dozens of people have been reportedly arrested in the protests, including journalists. Many demonstrators were also injured in clashes with police and pro-government activists. President Miguel Díaz-Canel blamed Cuba's economic turmoil on the U.S. trade embargo. The Biden administration pushed back on any notion the U.S. was responsible for the protests.
These are protests inspired by the harsh reality of everyday life in Cuba, not people in another country.
One indication of the growing discontent in Cuba is the uptick in the number of migrants arriving here in Florida by boat, risking their lives despite no longer having an automatic legal pathway to remain in this country. Manuel Bajorquez, CBS News, Miami.